Right, and welcome back. Still Breakfast Central on News Center with Olisa Chukuma and Tululokwe Adeleru Balogu. It's a wonderful Thursday morning. We're still kicking it today for you. And now it's all about small businesses and how they can thrive in 2021.
Yes, so let's get straight to it. Now, the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, is having a profound impact on global trade and the businesses that drive it. With countries in various stages of lockdown or loosening confinement periods, it is becoming clear that the virus has particularly impacted small and medium-sized enterprises, that is SMEs. About 50% of all small and medium-sized enterprises fail globally within 5 years of their existence.
At this rate, it's even higher in Africa due to a number of factors that are peculiar to the operating environment. The SMEs are important drivers of growth in economies across the sub-Saharan Africa, accounting for up to 90% of businesses in these markets. Places like Kenya, the National Bureau of Stats there says that SMEs play a critical role in the economy, constituting about 98% of all registered businesses and contributing about 33% to their GDP. Now, employing over 30% of Kenya's youth population and account for about 83.6% of new jobs.
And in Uganda, you have a situation where one-third of new business startups do not go beyond 1 year of operation, while in South Africa, the failure rate is between 50% and 95%, depending on the industry. With the prevailing challenges being faced by SMEs in Africa, the COVID-19 pandemic seems scarier, as so many businesses have either downsized or unfortunately shut down completely. Profit making is the aim of every business venture, but with the pandemic still ravaging the world, what is in the bag for SMEs for the year 2021?
Well, joining us is Anurika Azubike, and she's a leading business growth and transformation expert who helps business founders and leaders radically transform their businesses through innovative strategies and systems for scale and profit. She's also an author of 3 books on business innovation and strategy. Anurika, good morning. Good to have you back on Breakfast Central.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get straight to it. Let's look at some of the factors that have made SMEs vulnerable to the impact of COVID-19. So it's not to say it was their fault. This is a situation no one could have prevented or predicted even, but there would have been some factors that made some people a bit more vulnerable, or their businesses a bit more vulnerable to COVID-19 than others. What do you think that could be?
So there are a number of things, but I would say that the first thing to highlight is that COVID brought about a number of uncertainties, which is why SMEs, particularly not just in Africa, but around the world, were affected. Now, these uncertainties were a major setback for SMEs, and they all struggled to keep up with running their businesses in the midst of the circumstances. Now, one of the things that you notice about why SMEs were vulnerable to the impact of COVID is because many of them didn't have the structure or the systems to go beyond what they're currently doing as a business. So once an uncertainty presented itself, they struggled with keeping up with running their business. And besides, no one right now, the last pandemic we had was over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So it would be great to see there was a blueprint back then for how businesses thrived during that period and use it for today. Another thing was that there was a lot of disruptions caused by the pandemic, which also brought about border closures and affected many businesses, particularly as it had to do with imports and exports as well.
Well, Anurika, I need to ask you this one. There's lots of economic hardships brought about by the pandemic. So how can, these SMEs chart a way forward for 2021? Because we know that the mortality rate of these SMEs in Africa, is very, very high, you have to say. So what are the priorities for them to focus on this time?
So the pandemic did hit many economies, but it also provided opportunities for SMEs on what they could do to stay resilient in the midst of these challenges. The primary things SMEs can do to chart a way forward for 2021 is one word: innovate. And that means that SMEs would need to become more adaptable to circumstances. And of course, even the structure of SMEs actually make them more adaptable and more agile to respond to these circumstances. But to innovate, there are 3 things that I'm going to be sharing this morning. The first is that they need to reassess the marketplace and find out what is changing or what has changed, and how can they repurpose or repackage what they're doing so that they can address particularly what has changed or what is changing in the marketplace. Now, the second thing is to relearn, because the marketplace, because it is changing, it is evolving. The needs of the people within the marketplace is evolving as well. So it's important for them to relearn what the new needs or the needs of this evolved marketplace is, and be ready to deliver on those needs. And now the third is to rethink and to re-strategize, meaning that they would need to ask themselves how they will face the new challenges that they're currently facing, and even the ones that are to come. We're still living through the pandemic, so it's not over. We cannot tell right now from the look of things what the next 6 months will be. We already see how far the second wave has gone. So it's really important that SMEs are proactive enough to rethink and re-strategize on how they can meet the needs of the new marketplace.
I want to pick up on Olisa's point about mortality. So the stats have it that 5 out of 7 new businesses in Africa fail within their first year. And we know that there are many factors that can lead to the high mortality rate that we experience on the continent. So what do you think is the biggest priority, or are the biggest priorities that need to be addressed, and how do we address these priorities so that we can reduce that mortality rate?
Now, there are a number of factors that actually lead to high mortality rate for SMEs in Africa. And this is because there are different challenges that they face, whether it has to do with access to finance, or it has to do with policies that sort of stifle their growth. But all of these things contribute to them not being profitable. It contributes to them not being able to grow. And it ultimately causes them to lose money and many times to shut down. Now, the biggest priority areas should be what type of policies will be created so that there is an enabling environment for SMEs to thrive within the economy. And also looking at the fact that the SMEs actually have a huge impact in GDP, they have a huge impact in employment. So policies, I would say, would be one key thing, because many SMEs don't want to start businesses, and then they realize that somewhere down the line a policy changes, or there's something else that comes up which affects them, and they are not able to either continue as they had planned, or they have to completely rethink their business. So having an enabling environment where these SMEs can grow and thrive, I would say, would be a top priority.
Now, if you're talking about policies, Anurika, which means you're referring to governments, and no doubt they are the key players, for the ecosystem for SMEs. And just like you said, their roles can be viewed from, two lenses: enablers of SME growth, or delivering the targeted support, especially for high growth businesses. Now, what are the areas where governments, who are the policy formulators, as you say, could support and sustain these SMEs in Africa?
So just as I had said before, SMEs are the backbone of economies in Africa, contributing to employment and economic growth. So, but despite its contributions to the economy and to employment, there are many challenges that they go through, many things that stifle their growth and the development of these businesses. Now, one of the things is also the high cost of doing business. I talked about policies before, which can impact on the high cost of doing business. Or other things also would be the support that they would get from the government so that they are able to access the necessary funds. I know that a lot of private institutions and private individuals are already doing a lot in this regard, but the government also has started to do more in this regard as well. But there's still room for a lot more to be done, particularly where it has to do with ensuring that there's an enabling environment for these businesses to grow, ensuring that they have access to funds that will keep them growing, ensuring that they have the skills. So that on the one hand, there is the financial support. On the other hand, there is the technical support, where they are able to grow their businesses from a technical standpoint. Very earlier on in our conversation, I talked about the need for systems and structures within those businesses that can help them, irrespective of whatever circumstances are happening externally.
All right. So let's ask this: what business lessons, if any, do you think we can take away from the pandemic? So you spoke earlier about 3 things that businesses would need, and that would be innovation, relearning the marketplace, and re-strategizing. But what business lessons are there for people who are observing the marketplace or observing how things are playing out during this time?
So if there's one thing that the pandemic showed, it's the fact that Africa is not really using up its resources. So, well, using up would even be taking it really far. Africa hasn't scratched the surface at all of using its resources. So I think that the pandemic, one of the biggest lessons for the pandemic is about how Africa as a continent can look inwards and grow from there. There is so much resources that we have from a human capital standpoint because of our vast young population, or from our natural resource standpoint, which we haven't yet started utilizing as much as we should. The opportunities would be about Africa really looking inwards and utilizing its human and natural resources in order to grow as a continent, as well as all the countries within the continent. And I think that the second thing that I would share about lessons would be around the digital economy. That's one thing also that the pandemic showed, that there is a lot more that needs to happen for people to take advantage of the opportunities that the internet presents, of the opportunities that digital presents, of the opportunities that technology presents. So it's time for us to now move forward and go further and take advantage of these things.
All right, Anurika, I want to take you, would I say back or forward, but perhaps your latest book, Market Innovation. And in the book, just to quote you say, quote, because of the world today is more complex and disruptions are being witnessed now more than ever. You also say that, but there has never been a better time to grow an enterprise now. Now, how is that? Because we look around and we see economies and businesses really faltering. So how is now the good time to grow an enterprise?
That's a great question. It's one thing, opportunities. What the pandemic has done is to open, I'll say, the eyes of many and open up our hearts and minds to see that there are opportunities that we probably were not looking at before. And now the pandemic has shown us that this is the time to take advantage of those opportunities. Of course, the book was written before the pandemic, but it also showed that many times we are only looking within and seeing only the things that are around us. So we have a lot of blind spots and we're not able to take advantage of where the money is, of where the opportunities are, and where we can actually make impact where we are. So opportunities is the reason why this is a good time. This is the time for anyone to build a business is right now. There are opportunities that have not even been scratched. There are opportunities that are very limited players, and the requirement, the demand for solutions is really high. So it's because of opportunities.
All right, and I think that's a great note to end on. We're starting the year 2021. Things were really shady and shifty and just disrupted last year, but we're still going into this new year, and everybody should think about it in terms of the opportunities that this year and the pandemic provides. Anurika Azubike, thank you so much for joining us. We enjoyed our conversation today.
As always,
and we look forward to having you back.
Yeah.